You are a brilliant woman with a tremendous ability to impact how consumers are going to interface with the digital world for a long time to come. And I want to get to those areas of agreement, but there is some ugliness we got to deal with. Now, you guys putting in the names of reporters in a correspondence to Twitter was solely predicated based on anonymous news sources, right?
It was based on reporting that
right, and we would agree that anonymous reporting is not a sufficient predicate to target, to send letters about journalists who are your critics, right?
Congressman, yeah, I mean, the goal was third parties, but this is good feedback for us. We want to make sure we're not in any way suggesting that we're interested in, affecting journalists' work. It's really about privacy and security. So I
appreciate your acknowledgement that that is not the way we ought to do things. As someone who has seen ugly government action emerge out of anonymous reporting, perhaps I'm a little sensitive to that, but I'm glad that you've made that acknowledgement. Let's get on to the important work that you are doing. Millions of Americans have Ring doorbell cameras. And your agency recently put out a correspondence saying, quote, during a 3-month period in 2017, a Ring employee viewed thousands of videos of female users in their bedrooms and bathrooms, including videos of Ring's own employees. There was also at Ring, according to the FTC, an unauthorized tunnel that allowed a Ukraine-based contractor to access consumer videos. An incident where a Ring employee gave information about a customer's to their ex-husband was also something that you uncovered. You also state that bad actors at Ring took advantage of the camera's two-way communication functionality to harass and threaten people who used Ring cameras. There was a case where an 87-year-old woman at an assisted living facility was sexually propositioned through Ring's two-way features. Kids were subject to racial slurs. A hacker got in and threatened a family with physical harm if they did not pay a Bitcoin ransom. And one hacker even communicated through the two-way feature to a customer that they had already killed the customer's mother and, quote, tonight you die. What is going on at Ring?
So as you noted, we recently took enforcement action precisely because of these very serious lapses in data privacy, which endangered Americans in their day-to-day lives. Overall, looking at some of these surveillance devices and how they can be misused and abused is a top area of focus for us because people's privacy is paramount.
Yeah, I thought that when people got Ring, it was to enhance their personal security, not to have their 87-year-old relative in an ALF sexually propositioned, their children to be slurred at, and then to be told that they were going to be killed if they didn't pay Bitcoin ransom. So thank you for that effort. Let's go to another evil company, Kochava. Kochava is one of these data brokers that you're going after, right?
That's right.
And the American people should know that Kochava geolocates where people go to church, and then they sell that data to commercial enterprises, right?
That's right.
That's real creepy, isn't it?
I believe most people would have that reaction, yes.
I got onto the FBI director yesterday for their creepy FISA activity, and now we have Kochava literally selling to people, oh, well, this is a Baptist, this is a Methodist, this is someone who goes to temple. Are you going to get these people and stop them?
So we have a pending lawsuit. We filed it last year. The court dismissed it. They gave us the opportunity to refile. We just refiled an amended complaint. And we think it's urgent to act here because, the types of stigmatization and harms that can stem from being able to track and sell people's sensitive geolocation information is just critical for us to be addressing.
We didn't like it when the FBI was wanting to infiltrate the Catholic churches, and I don't know that I want the data brokers to do the same. And by the way, we've even seen how the FBI is using the data brokers to do an end run around the Fourth Amendment. So I really want to encourage your work in this space, and I hope that your litigation against Kochava is something that creates precedent. And you know what? There's been criticism of some of your losses in court, but we as sophisticated lawyers know sometimes that a motion to dismiss an initial complaint can create a pathway to an amended complaint to achieve relief. And so if the laws are insufficient to stop data brokers from selling information about where my constituents worship, and if the laws are insufficient to stop Ring from these activities, I really hope you'll work with us to change those laws. And all of Mr. Buck's points are really central to this, because if Congress is bought off, if people are just coming here to beat you up over what email account you use or what trip you've been on to Europe, I think it misses these things that are far more central to the life that our constituents lead. Thank you for your work.
I would just say worse than Coach Chavez selling, it's the FBI is probably buying it. That's the scariest part. So
agree with both.
I appreciate.
Well, let's get a bill, Mr. Chairman, to deal with those data brokers.
We're working with the gentlelady who just went right before you to do just that. That is something that I think this committee can hopefully agree on. And I neglected to mention this earlier, Madam Chair. We've been at this hour and a half. If you need a break at any time, just let us know. If not, we can keep going because we can get up and leave, but you can't. So you let us know if you need a break. With that, if you're willing to keep going, we'll go to the gentleman. Thank the gentleman for yielding. Ms. Khan, earlier, and I believe the gentleman from Arizona brought this up. You said people's privacy is paramount. I couldn't agree more. And as we talked earlier, I do think there's bipartisan support to deal with that. This sweeping up of data that happens, and scarier yet is FBI purchasing that data. So that is of paramount importance. But I would say the First Amendment's of paramount importance too. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
And then the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock, asked you what's disinformation, and you said you don't really have an opinion on that. Was that a fair assessment of your answer?
As part of our job at the FTC, we're focused on deception and fraud and that sort of thing.
Well, you wrote a couple years ago in a Law Review article, digital businesses such as Twitter disserve their users by facilitating the spread of disinformation. What were you talking about there then? What's disinformation?
I'm happy to take a closer look at the material you're mentioning, but as part of our work at the FTC, we've seen how fraud and scams can sometimes proliferate on these social media websites. We've launched an inquiry to try to understand, why are some of these crypto scams really proliferating on these sites, and what can we be doing?
These are the first two sentences in the introduction of the piece you wrote, again, just a couple years ago. Digital businesses such as Twitter disserve their users by facilitating the spread of disinformation. Who decides what's disinformation?
From the FTC's perspective, it's deception and fraud.
That's fine. You can keep using synonyms, but I want to know who decides that it's deception, who decides that it's fraud, who decides that it's disinformation. In this case, you're talking about social media companies and what gets posted on their platform. Who decides what's disinformation, what isn't?
So, Congressman, again, at the FTC, we're focused on fraud and deception. There is a legal standard about what constitutes fraud. Again, this is about...
But you didn't say fraud or deception, you said disinformation. And my concern is, again, and it's probably the third time I've talked about this, but the sustained attack on Twitter when the ownership there changed and the platform was committed to not taking down speech, not taking down posts, allowing the sharing of information, and not censoring information. And we just had a major decision last week from a court in Louisiana, a federal court in Louisiana, where they said the government was in fact pressuring big tech companies to censor, and big tech companies were willing to go along with it. Now we have a change there, and you're going after the one company that's changed how they're doing things. That's what concerns me, particularly in light of the fact that you just wrote about this a few years ago, saying this is what goes on.
Congressman, I'm glad to have the opportunity to clarify some issues here. So we at the FTC have no view on who should or should not own a company. All we care about is that the company is following the law. That's really what our focus is.
We've covered that ground. I want to know about disinformation and who decides what's disinformation. You think the government should decide that?
Congressman, the way I see it is concentrations of economic power, including over speech platforms and communications platform, that it's that concentrated power and the ability to pick who gets heard, who doesn't get heard, to make these types of decisions. That, I think, is concerning to all of us, and the FTC's job is to be promoting...
You know what kind of speech was getting censored? Do you know what the court said last week? Have you read the opinion, by the way?
I have not. It did not concern the FTC.
You know what kind of speech was getting censored? You know what the court said? Conservative speech. Conservative speech was the suppression was virtually all conservative. This is not Jim Jordan talking about, this is not Republicans on the Judiciary Committee talking, this is the federal judge who had the facts, 86 pages of facts, and laid out, put the facts and the law together in this opinion, strong opinion, which said it was a conservative speech that was getting censored and labeled as disinformation.
So Congressman, I fully understand why, given the extreme concentration of power over some of these speech platforms, why people would be afraid and worried about censorship. I couldn't agree more that when you have a handful of people making decisions about what gets seen, what doesn't get seen, who gets heard.
And you think the remedy to that is for government to decide what's disinformation and what's not?
Congressman, at the FTC, our job is to promote competition. More competition means more people making these decisions, and I think that can alleviate some of the concerns about censorship that you're sharing.
Gentleman's time has expired. Chair